I think we can all agree that scaling quality process and programs has its challenges, but these are especially amplified in smaller organizations. I personally speak to scaling companies every day, and these companies are often still relying on manual processes like drafting SOPs, work instructions, and policies on paper with standardized templates. And these people are also often walking these paper versions from desk to desk for reviews and approvals. Or sometimes the more tech savvy are emailing each other documents, gathering e-signatures, and storing documents in a non-validated system, all in a very disconnected manner. And this significantly impacts the control and the oversight you as quality folks have over these processes, which poses a huge compliance risk. So today, we're here to talk about how teams can make these processes more efficient with one part of Montrium's ecosystem, our EQMS, which is comprised of 4 modules. Specifically, the SOP Connect, which we're looking at today, Trading Connect, Kappa Connect, and Change Connect, which, as I mentioned before, are all a part of our quality management system and are specifically designed for growing and scaling teams to manage their quality processes from start to finish. So, today, Chris will take us through how SOP Connect allows for drafting controlled documents from templates that are stored in a centralized template center, real-time document authoring and collaboration using Microsoft Word, easily configurable workflows to automate your reviews and approvals, and a built-in PDF engine with 21 CFR Part 11 compliant e-signatures. And with that, I'll hand it off to Chris again.
You should see my screen now. I'm bringing up sort of our SOP Connect homepage, obviously part of the larger quality management system that Matt was referring earlier. The view that you're seeing here is of my alias, Chris Martin. A lot of tiles, obviously. This is basically what an admin would see, but this would be more streamlined as your users become more restricted in terms of the permissions that they have access to. Obviously, we're here to focus today on sort of that, document creation, the approval work cycles, the collaboration on that documentation, and then, how are we approving those documents in the system without having to go from desk to desk and, running after documents here or, even running into the issue of version control and potentially using the wrong version. So that control that you're looking for, hopefully a system like Montrium can bring that to the organization. So we're going to start by focusing here on creating a new document. I do want to focus on a few key parts of what we call the draft document change control, form, or some people internally refer to it as a document creation wizard. But I think what you have to remember about this is this form here is meant to give you that control and oversight you're looking for, and will follow that document along in its entire life cycle, from the draft, the creation, the approval, to it being effective, to revisions down the line, and eventually it becoming an obsolete SOP. This document change control form will follow that document in its entire journey. So obviously we'd be, creating a document title here. I want to focus more on document types. I'm not going to take us through the whole form today and put everyone to sleep, but obviously we can if you want to, jump into the nitty gritty with another demo with our team. But some of the ones I want to focus on, I think we're all pretty familiar with SOPs and policies. Form word here, really interesting. We can do sort of fillable forms in the system. So that's a really interesting use case. Work instructions, quality manuals, fairly standard. And then controlled documents, which I really like, because this acts as sort of a catch-all for all of your quality documentation that may not fit in your standard SOP, policy, work instruction, quality manual, right? So with this controlled document type, you'll see this document subtype with, any number of different subtypes that you want to create. And I'll show you in a second how easy and seamless that is to do. With this document subtype pick list, you can then associate any number of these, whether it's sort of audit plans or agendas, cover letters, and, all the way through to batch records and test reports, right? So different types of documents that you can create from this document type. And then obviously you're able to pull document templates from a template center that you're managing in the system, which is, again, just as easy to manage as sort of the document subtype list that we'll go through in a second, just a standard library where you can add the templates that you're already using internally. And again, garnering the control that you're looking for in the look and feel and the creation of that documentation. Apart from that, I think some of the really interesting pieces to focus on, obviously business unit and departments. This is something that sort of, in the spirit of working with small and medium and scaling organizations, a lot of this business unit departments, the different nomenclature, we're going to help you set that up when you get going with us, which is really, really nice. So we'll do a lot of that work. But obviously, this is how you're going to sort of, separate that documentation internally, and we'll see how the system does that in a few seconds as well. And then we sort of have this change request detail, and this is what is going to change and what's going to follow that document along its process, right? So as you're creating the SOP or creating the work instruction, obviously this is sort of that first iteration of the change request, but this will change, very many times throughout the creation and the life cycle of that document as you're creating it, as you're reviewing it, periodic reviews, or at one point you may even supersede that document with a new one and make one obsolete. So again, a lot of power in what you can do, and obviously the control that you're looking for. And we'll see how this changes in a little bit when we look at some different tasks. And then reviewers and approvers, pretty standard electronic approvals for certain document types, e-signatures using a 21 CFR Part 11 tool at Adobe that we've integrated with Adobe. So really depending on the document type, you can sort of select or pre-select the approval types that the system can handle. And then this can go to sort of individuals or groups, which is really, really nice as well. So I'm just going to back out of this change control form, and I'm going to use a few that I've created in the past to help illustrate sort of how the system is going to help us create this documentation from templates, and then obviously collaborate on that content. So maybe a task that I can focus on is this SOP number 58 that I created earlier today. This is a document review task, and where that would fall sort of in the entire life cycle of the change control process is right in this beginning process here, right? So what we just saw would have been the change initiation. Obviously from that change initiation, there's an approval process, and then the document authoring that we'll look at, and finally sort of a change approval and initial content approval based on sort of what was expected in that controlled document. From there, it'll undergo review cycles. This can be done with, again, groups or individuals, and there can be any number of review cycles done until the document owner is satisfied and everyone is satisfied with the contents of that document. There's a native PDF tool that will take care of taking that Word document that you're working on and converting it to a PDF. There's a verification step, obviously, to make sure everything looks good. And then we'll go to training and closeout and making that document effective. So we'll take a look at a few of these steps. I think what's important to understand here is there's a lot of steps. This can be sort of narrowed down as well based on the use case and based on the document type. So this is very, very flexible. And obviously some of these steps sort of will happen in parallel with very many people or different stakeholders, depending on the size of the organization. So a lot of flexibility here and a lot of control and sort of, when and where and who is taking part in these document reviews. So again, let's focus on this SOP 58 that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to open this task and we'll see a few different things here. One, this is sort of your task page. And if you've seen the other parts of the system before, you'll see it should be very familiar. But what you're getting here is sort of a link to your proposed document, and then a link to that DCC form that we just looked at, the document change control form. So if I quickly open the document change control form, we'll see a lot of that information that we looked at earlier, the document title, document subtypes. I pulled this document from a clinical SOP template that we'll see in one quick second. You'll see here that I would have had my summary of changes as sort of a new SOP required for clinical monitoring, which would have impacted a previous version. So I can link that in the change control form. I can link the SOP that was impacted by this new clinical SOP that we're putting in place. Training, this is something I selected no here based on the fact that it's a demo, but obviously we can select a course that would have already been created, or we can prompt sort of a course creation through the system, which is really, really nice. And ultimately what this will do is start a workflow to then in parallel create a training course within the Training Connect module that's very closely linked. Create that course in the training matrix. And then once that's done, you can then go and close out this document change control. Other than that, I wanted to show you sort of what this integration to Word looked like. So this was that form. This is the actual content. So as you can see, I would have pulled this from a template that I brought into the template library. This would be a read-only view that I can then go and open in my desktop Word version here. I can track all my changes, all of the same functionality that you have in Word normally for document collaboration. You have sort of in this seamless integration to monitor your system, which is amazing. Obviously, everything is saving back to the system. You can have autosave on. You'll see the nomenclature here. You know that you're working on sort of your SOP 58 for pharmaco. This nomenclature is all customizable as well, which is really, really nice. And then obviously, as you're sort of updating this content, right, you can track your changes. You can show your comments. You can, decide to show your markups or no markups, right? All that same functionality that you're used to. And if I were to X out of here, it's going to prompt me to save. I'll save that quickly. And as I head back to this document that's opened in the system, if I quickly refresh this, you'll see that red template is now gone. So obviously it's tracking all my changes back to the system, never breaking that, audit trail that we're all looking to keep intact. So some really cool stuff with that integration to Word. That would have been, one part of a document review. Again, the system will handle multiple reviewers, multiple stakeholders in the creation of this document. And in this case, once I was done my part, simply click OK, close out this task, and then it would go to the next person. And obviously that document owner would be notified. So really cool functionality there when it comes to creating that documentation and then obviously collaborating on that documentation as well. Last thing I really wanted to show you in today's demo, obviously you'll see very many different tasks here. We can, again, go through those in a subsequent demo, but that was sort of your authoring task. You can have your document review tasks, and then obviously the QA. And again, these are steps that you can add or remove based on, the size of your team, the size of the organization, which is nice. But the last thing I wanted to sort of focus on is that last step. So now we've created that document, we've associated the training, we've signed off on that document. We've either electronically approved it or we've e-signed it using Adobe. Where do those documents go? Where do those documents live? So they live in an effective controlled documents library that is broken down here by the document types that we saw earlier. But what's really cool about this is there's different ways that you can group the information. You can slice and dice the data. You can create your own views based on any number of pieces of metadata. You can pull your documents that are past due for periodic review. So a lot of power in, what normally would be just sort of a, folder structure of different types of documents. So if I head into like my research and development over here, I'll pick on ClinOps as I normally do. I can see my different SOPs that are related to this ClinOps department. Different functionality here. I can select this document, head up to this functionality over here. I can request controlled copies, request my document revision, document obsolescence, or my periodic review. Also important to note, the periodic reviews are being tracked by the system. So that's also automated for you. So you're not having to do it manually, but obviously you can always do that manually if you like. So a lot of different ways that you can sort of expose and look at this documentation and find the documentation that you're looking for. And then obviously by sort of selecting the document, you can open, in this case, the work instruction. You'll see sort of the approval section here, and then just a test here, not the nicest work instruction, but, obviously see that document that you can pull up. And then if ever those are related to trainings and people are training on those, that would all be managed sort of in the training management portion of the system, which we've done an earlier demo on that you should have access to. But in that demo, you can see a lot of the cross functionality between the two systems and how, you're making sure that people are trained on this documentation that you have effective within the organization. So a lot of cool stuff there. Last maybe thing I wanted to quickly show, if I just exit out of here and get back to my homepage, we do sort of separate the two libraries between effective controlled and non-effective controlled documents. And then if you have documents that you're sort of executing outside of the system, that are, you're looking to bring in and create maybe your own folder view. There's also another part of SOP Connect that's called our executed quality records. That is another sort of library where you can store documents like batch records, maybe that you're executing outside of the system, and you can create your own folder structure. So not only are you getting that control that you're looking for in the creation of the documents and your reviews and periodic reviews, et cetera, but obviously you're able to have a little bit of flexibility while it being turnkey, a lot of flexibility in the nomenclature and the different, I know I mentioned document subtypes earlier, right? And it's as simple as sort of clicking into a library and creating a new document subtype and associating it to the document type. So a lot of flexibility there while maintaining that control, and obviously while, implementing a solution that is designed for medium, small and medium scaling organizations that, need turnkey, but need a little bit of flexibility as well. So Matt, I don't know if you want to recap that quickly, but I think, based on the conversations you've had with customers, I think it's pretty safe to say that this would alleviate some of that pain.
Yeah, I think so, Chris. Typically, the people who come to us for these types of events do express a lot of stress and a lot of trouble with these. And once they get a solution like this, they usually are quite relieved.
And as always, if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on the team, and we'd be happy to address them, and maybe even dive into a more another demo with more specific use cases and get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. So thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for all who attended, and hopefully we'll all speak soon.